Recording in progress.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is 3:02 p.m. on Monday, July 8th, 2024. I'd like to call the Housing and Economic Development Committee meeting to order. We are joined in chambers by Legislator Pillar, Legislator Koreman, and we have Legislator Brooks online. Also, Legislator Brown, not a member of the committee, but joining in for the discussion, and also our chair, Dan Klein, is with us today as well. There's a number of people that are here as well in the audience, some part of presentation, some also wishing to speak on privilege of the floor. I'll make the mention again, if you have not filled out a blue card and you would like to speak at the beginning of the meeting under privilege of the floor, please do so and provide me with that blue paper. Before we get started with public comment, I would just like to make one change to the agenda. Sorry, I know I'm skipping agenda orders, but I would like to move number 7, County Administrator's Report, up to right after public comment. So to accommodate some schedules, and this is not our normal meeting day, but because of the holiday, which I hope everyone had a wonderful July 4th, everybody was safe and got to enjoy some time doing whatever that they like to do, and hopefully it was a great holiday weekend for everyone. I'm going to now read the rules for speaking under privilege of the floor. As I agree to a 3-minute time limit. I agree not to raise my voice. I agree not to use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. After 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. I agree to be courteous and not make comments, gestures, outbursts, or other disruptions while other members of the public or legislators are speaking. I agree that if I cause a disruption and am asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. So those are the rules. And I do have 2 blue cards, 2 members of the public wishing to speak. The first one will be Teresa Alt from the city of Ithaca. So Teresa, if you'd like to make your way to a microphone.
Yes, Teresa Alt, city of Ithaca. No great enlightenment to add, but I am really excited to see living wage legislation actually come to the legislature. Living wage has been calculated, I think, for more than 20 years. First every other year, and then recently in a time of inflation after 1 year. And research from Cornell personnel has shown that it agrees well with calculations by MIT and the like. The same researchers looked into what the effect of this legislation like this would be and concluded that it would be beneficial. So, as I said, I am really glad to see it coming here to you.
Thank you, Teresa. Next, we have Herb Ingman from the town of Ithaca.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I wanted to talk today because this is an issue very near and dear to my heart. When I was town supervisor of the town of Ithaca, I found out that even though we paid very well to our full-time employees, our part-time and our seasonal employees were not making living wage. So I applied to the Workers Center for certification as a minimum wage employer, and we made sure that everybody got living wage. When I found out that Ithaca College was not paying their food service workers living wage, I called Tom or Sean and said, look, there's 70-some employers in Tompkins County that are paying living wage. What's with this? And to his credit, he made sure that that got changed. And I don't know if it's still going, but I hope that it is. On the opposite extreme, when I became president of Green Springs Natural Cemetery, I suggested we become a living wage employer, even though we had no full-time employees. And again, we applied to the Workers Center, became certified, and we've paid at least living wage ever since. I recently was elected to a well-known local nonprofit, and one of the first questions I asked was, are we a living wage employer? And they said yes, and I knew I had found a good place for me. But my interest goes back decades, because for 35 years I advocated for equal minimum wage for farm workers in New York State. And that happened because you could pay farm workers less than minimum wage way back then. And Governor Pataki, to his credit, signed into legislation equal minimum wage for farm workers. That illustrates that this is not a partisan issue. It's an issue of justice, of being fair to everybody. And we all know that you cannot live in any part of Tompkins County except maybe the very rural, most rural towns making even living wage. When I was town supervisor, we only had 2 employees out of our 100 living in the town of Ithaca. And the reason was they couldn't afford it. The 2 who lived in town were required by state law to live in town, so they had to. So this is a very serious issue, and I want to encourage you to support the eventual creation of the living wage as the minimum wage. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who joined that wishes to speak during privilege of the floor? Or Taylor, is there anyone online? Okay, all right, well, seeing none, we'll move into the rest of the business of the agenda. I will now turn it over to Lisa Holmes for the County Administrator's Report. Lisa, I believe we have 2 items under that. The first is a presentation on a 2025 project approval request form, or I guess just request, I guess no form anymore, so
yes.
Take it away.
Thank you, Greg. So this is a new capital project for 2025, and just wanted to bring to the committee's attention to build or renovate an emergency shelter. We have not had adequate shelter space, and it's been difficult to come by, or impossible to come by on the rental market. So we're talking about securing a location, which we're in the process of at this time. The location is still under consideration and is still considered confidential as a real estate transaction. But the cost, the square footage needs, and the number of beds are based on previous work with a consultant and expectation that the county would apply for and receive New York State funding through the HHAP fund program, and local funds would be used for site control and other project-related expenses. So that's just, if you have any further questions on this, I see both Kit and Arel are online and may be able to answer any questions that Bridget or I can't answer.
Thanks. First, I'll ask members of the committee or other legislators for any comments or questions for Lisa, Kit, or Arel. Oh. Ann?
I know we've discussed this, several different times at the legislature and in this committee, and so thank you for putting this together. This is also a document that helps me to see all the details of it, and helps me feel more confident about going forward to help house people who need it year-round. So thank you.
And just to highlight, this is projected for about 100 occupants in a mix of dormitory, congregate, et cetera, to be determined. But the goal is that it would increase our capacity by about 100 or so beds.
That's correct.
Okay. And just so that, and I see Kit joined in. So Kit, if you have anything else that you'd like to also add to the conversation, you're welcome to do so.
The only thing I was going to add, Greg, is, and I think Lisa has kind of alluded to this, is that as we, so this will increase our shelter capacity, but it also will alleviate our reliance, our over-reliance right now on the hotel system, which really, intermittently is shaky. And so I think it will be a huge relief within that system to have, to have a place where we can provide integrated services, as well as not have to wonder, are we going to be able to utilize this? Is it the wrong time of year to be able to shelter people at hotels and to be able to rely on that system? So that's the only other piece that I had to add.
Great. And we're still in the process of exploring lower, or the term no barrier shelter, and how that may apply or impact us in this process.
That's correct.
Okay. And then just so we can be clear for those that aren't nerdy on the finance stuff, Interfund A, the 2 million out of the 8.2 million projected project cost would come as a county contribution out of
We set up a capital account for this purpose.
Right.
So, and that was, we did that some months back, and that was funded, I believe, using general fund balance.
Okay. And then the state aid would be the 6.2 to bring us to the 8.2.
Yeah.
Great. And then the next piece of this would be a conversation around operating, annual operating costs and the impact to the budget at some point in the budget process.
That's correct. I mean, we still expect that a large portion of this, the operations, would be funded through the temporary housing assistance, THA funded programs through the state, with some local share depending upon to what extent we want to offer to supplement for low barrier usage.
Great. And the amount here is total project cost, including land and facility on the land.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions by any of my colleagues? Okay. Well, seeing none, this is exciting to finally see on paper. And oh, sorry, Travis, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just was going to ask one question. Is this conversation just about the purchasing or the overall big picture?
It's about the purchase and the construction.
Okay, so no, I don't have any questions right now.
Thank you. All right, well, excited to see this keep moving forward. I know this is a large community need that we need to continue to address as quickly as we have capacity for. So thank you. I know that this is a heavy lift. And Kit, thank you, and Arel, for your work putting this together as well. All right, the next item we have under County Administrator Report is the request for qualifications RFQ Emergency Shelter Development, ID 12544.
And for this portion, I'd like to ask Bridget to report out, as she played the biggest hand in putting this RFQ together for this.
Sure, happy to, thank you. So yes, as you can see in your packet starting on packet page 22, we have the draft request for qualifications for a developer or development team to take the project all the way through design and construction. So we're really looking for a turnkey developer for the emergency shelter that we just discussed in the last agenda item. County administration worked with our team facilities, DSS, and planning to put together the request for qualifications. And as you can see, we are looking for someone to take on each of those phases of the project, in addition to helping the county seek the requisite funding from the state. So really looking for qualifications that speak to the developer's experience working with municipalities on similar type projects. So with that, if you have any questions about what's in the RFQ, happy to take them.
Thanks. And the RFQ, does that need any formal action by any of the committees of the legislature, or what's the process for that, just to clarify for everybody?
It's just for your information and if you had any questions.
Great. And I'm going to assume that this has followed some of the other feedback that we've received in the other RFQs that we've had at a larger level as it relates to our various goals and priorities as a county.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Any questions on the RFQ? And just maybe timeline for this?
So it's currently, I understand, undergoing compliance and legal review, which typically means about 2 weeks out, we should have a final product to post for bid.
Great. So, and then we would hope to have responses back by
the end of August, beginning of September.
so sometime mid-September.
Yes.
Great. Any other questions? Go ahead, Ann.
Perhaps I missed it. There's a lot of detail in our agenda packet today.
Yes.
So I'm wondering about our DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. And is this listed in here? Is this part of what, when we're selecting, well, we're asking for qualifications from developers? Is it in here and I missed it?
Yes, thank you for the question, Annie. And
24.
Oh, okay. So,
yeah, it is actually built into our review process for all RFQs, RFPs. Charlene does do a review in order to insert and make sure that that language is in there. So it is built actually right on the first page, packet page 22, the second paragraph. There's language there, and then it is referenced throughout.
okay, great. Just want to highlight that too.
Yes, thank you.
So that we keep that. So thanks for making sure that's in there, and just want to highlight because that is an important goal for us. Thank you.
And the review team for this, is that listed on here?
I don't think it is, but we were just, and at Downtown Facilities, we're going to be having a similar discussion. According to the county's green buildings policy for any new construction or substantial renovation, there is a team of staff designated that will be assembled for review. And I would expect we would be looking for input from the HED committee or legislators from this committee to take place in that review process.
Great.
So if you're interested.
Okay. Well, let us know how we're needed and when we're needed, and we'll go from there.
Sounds great.
All right, if there's no other question, Randy, go ahead.
Thank you, Greg. I think this is kind of what Travis was pointing to. Has it been determined that this is going to be one big building or more than one building, or is it just is that decision been made? And you talked about low barrier versus other things. Where is that decision process in this work?
So I think that we are talking one big building or one building, and we're still assuming that the current shelter location that we're operating, the county is operating, that would still continue. And there are still some assumptions that programmatically, which Kit could also speak to, that not all populations may be able to be served under one roof, that there may be legal or safety or other reasons to keep certain individuals separate from one another. So while we hope that this makes a substantial impact and can serve most of our individuals who are unhoused, there will still be a need for other locations, but hopefully smaller locations.
Thank you.
And I think one of the points too on the low, no barrier versus I don't want to say traditional shelter modeling, but I think part of that conversation will happen in the budget process, where those decisions will be made around, I mean, a bed's a bed. Some of the intake is really the process that changes. This just solidifies we want to build beds for unhoused and space for unhoused. And the operation of that, I think, will come as a second piece to the budget process and what we're able to financially handle, what's reimbursable, what's not reimbursable, et cetera.
Yeah, and that's probably worth mentioning because there are many different conversations happening around unsheltered homelessness and different RFPs and RFQs. The group that has been meeting biweekly for the last several months that has been periodically reporting to this committee has continued to meet to discuss what a proposal could look like to start a lower barrier approach now, not just when a new construction takes place. We've been making some strides in those conversations and would hope to have some proposals to report out at, I hope, by the next committee meeting, and certainly to consider in the budget process for 2025.
So to a safe assumption, at least by September.
Yes.
Great. And I see Kit just came back on the screen. Kit, is there anything else that you wanted to add into that?
Just one other piece, since we're talking about RFPs, and I know I'm kind of throwing this in the middle of things, but I can't stay the whole meeting today, so I won't be able to check in later. The other thing that people are going to see very shortly is an RFP, a couple of RFPs coming out for shelter services. We've been working with finance, and it's time for us to put out an RFP for the current shelter services that we provide. And so that is going to be out there as well. We're going to be looking for providers. So please, if people know of organizations that are interested in potentially providing that shelter service, we're looking for that word to get out about applying for that RFP. So we're expecting that'll be released very shortly this month. And we're not necessarily looking for somebody. Currently, St. John's, is handling all of shelter services, the Code Blue, the THA, the Friendship Center. We're hoping that they will apply for all or part of those services, but it is also written in such a way that organizations can apply for one small part of it if they feel like they can do that. So talk that up, and we're looking for those providers.
Veronica has a question.
Kit answered half my question, but I should know this. Can you remind me if the county owns the building that's currently our emergency shelter that St. John's operates?
No.
No. It's actually rented. It's rented by St. John's currently. So, and that would be probably available to another provider as well if that were to change.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Great. Well, if there's no other questions, Lisa, any other county administrator report or update, or Bridget? I also see Norma on as well, so just want to hit all the, great. Well, thank you very much, Lisa, and off to the next.
Thank you. I appreciate you rescheduling.
Of course. All right. Well, next up on the agenda, we have the minutes approval from June 5th. If I could have somebody move those, if there's no changes. Moved by Annie, seconded by Veronica. We're going to need a roll call vote, I believe, because Travis is remote. So Travis, I'm going to always start with you for the votes. So Travis?
Yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So those minutes passed. Advisory board appointments, ID 12456, Scott Reisenberger, Tompkins Cortland Community College representative for the Strategic Tourism Planning Board, Term expires December 31st, 2026. Could I have someone move those advisory board appointments? Moved by Veronica, seconded by Annie. If we need to have discussion, we can go into executive session, but if there's no discussion, happy to take the vote at this time. All right, Travis?
Yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So we'll welcome Scott after the full legislature approval. Great. So under the chair's report, this is a collection of a lot of different conversations that we're going to have today. And I wanted to invite the Manufactured Housing Working Group to come, and I know we have several people, so if you'd like to make your way to the table, and I'll allow you to make an introduction and start the conversation. There also, just as you're getting settled in, I do believe that we have in our agenda packet on packet page 9 through packet page 15, a report that was submitted to the committee. So I'll turn it over to all of you.
Thank you, Greg. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Danielle Eisman. I am the organizer of this group, which was developed at the initial request of Randy Brown, who spoke with our chair for the Climate and Sustainable Energy Board of Tompkins County, who raised the issue with Sarah Culata about energy efficiency concerns for constituents working or living in manufactured housing. Based on that request, Chuck Geisler presented to our group back in September of 2022, discussing the different ways that manufactured housing could be improved in terms of making homes more affordable, warmer, more comfortable for residents. And based off of that initial presentation, we decided as the case board to develop a working group to explore these issues more deeply. And so since October of 2022, our small informal group has been exploring a lot of the problems surrounding residents living in manufactured housing, where this started out as primarily a concern about energy efficiency and affordability and comfort. We've now expanded into issues such as helping out residents that are living in communities that may be purchased by property management firms. Then they often raise the rents, they don't improve the infrastructure, and that leads to ongoing issues. And I don't want to get into a lot of the numerous problems that we've uncovered in the last 18 months. A lot of that is detailed in that report that I've submitted to you all. We really wanted to come here today to start a conversation with the county to discuss how we as a group could work together with the county and with some of the other nonprofit organizations to address the issues that affect residents in manufactured housing. And we aren't trying to suggest that manufactured housing is the only solution for the larger issue of affordable housing, but this is part of the solution that has viable solutions that we've uncovered through our discussions in our listening sessions, and we feel as though we can work together to have impact in addressing a lot of these issues around affordability, energy efficiency, a pathway for economic security for residents, homeownership, health, well-being, and all the things that, I guess, perhaps make up the American dream, so to speak, right? And so really we wanted to see, is there a way for the county to either have a dedicated role that explores manufactured housing issues and really helps to overcome some of the siloed approaches that we see in this space. If you look at the state policy, there are 4 different state departments that work on manufactured housing, and they often work in very siloed approaches. We also see that a lot of the problems that residents in manufactured homes encounter is stemming from the installation of manufactured homes on either a foundation space or a lot space. And oftentimes municipalities are left to oversee that, and they don't have the resources to oversee that. So there's just, I could go on and on with all of the issues that stem from this siloed approach. And so we really see that having either a dedicated person or a dedicated group devoted to bringing these issues together, uncovering the problems, establishing solutions, looking at the costs and benefits of the different solutions, and finding dedicated funding to help support the solutions can really have an impact on this problem. So with that, I want to offer either Randy, Chuck, or Holly the opportunity to add any points.
Yeah, I'll jump right in. I'm not sure I was the person behind driving all this, but thank you for that credit. When we first started looking at this, it was a small group, and it grew, and it continues to grow. Maybe a dozen people meet once a month routinely, and they've researched a lot of this. We got a lot of help from the assessment office, giving us data on all these manufactured homes. I was surprised there were over 4,000 of them in Tompkins County. And also the number that are very old. There's over 300, I think, roughly, that are close to 50 years old. And the original discussion was over Sustainable Tompkins on the cost of heating and cooling these units. In Tompkins County, through the American Rescue Plan funds, we actually did fund a pilot program, and Holly is the one that's been working on that, to convert some of these units to electricity to help them reduce costs, but also includes insulation and all those kind of things that are important. But what it really came down to for me was that this is truly affordable housing that you can own. Mobile homes, or trailers as people call them, the single wides, they change ownership often. People might live in them for 5 years, and then they sell them to a friend. And all of a sudden, and it just goes on and on and on. It's not unusual for multiple people that are not related to live in these manufactured homes, and they're paying $300 a month in rent, or plus lot rent, and they're sharing things, and it truly is affordable housing, especially in rural areas. One of my concerns for manufactured homes in parks, and I know the health department deals with this on a routine basis, is that some of these parks they have private wells and private septic systems. And some of them are not in great condition. And that's not just in one town, it's in numerous towns. I know that there's currently one that's asking a town to extend their water system because they don't have, they're worried about their quality of water and the quality of the water. And that's not unusual. What we also found, and it's difficult, so what would happen if all of a sudden a place has 87 manufactured homes, their water system failed? Those people would have to vacate. We'd have a real problem on our hands. Where would we put those people? And that's definitely something that could happen. It's not an if, it's when. The investors we found are typically focused on purchasing parks that have that infrastructure in place. They have the water, they have the sewer, because they don't want the risk, because they understand that's the risk. What came out of this whole discussion was the energy efficiency and ownership, but also, is there an opportunity for the people who live in these parks to own the park, so to speak? And so they have a co-op. They all are a percentage of, there's 100 homes, and they buy they somehow get funding, which is another issue for manufactured home. Getting banks to loan the money is a separate issue we've also talked about. how does that happen? How does that work? And so what we, you know, and I could go on a long time about this, and I won't. But so what this group came from is that maybe we should focus on finding one location that they've already done the one in Ithaca Neighborhood Housing. They did one in Ulysses, and they got funding for that and whatnot. But maybe there's a pilot, or in Dryden, I think it has a couple good parks there that have that infrastructure in place. How could these people truly own the ground underneath these units? It's not, in manufactured homes as a whole are really entry-level homes. If you put it, there's over 2,000 of these manufactured homes in Tompkins County on their own private lots. So there's ways to look at this. If you want to buy a house today, if a 1,200 square foot house, you're going to pay $250,000. Whereas manufactured home, you could do for a lot less. But you've got to get the banks in line, you've got to get all these things rolling, and that's what this group's been working on. And we have a lot of data, and hopefully this discussion continues. So thank you.
Other members of the group?
Yes, thank you. I'm Holly Hutchinson. I am a resident of Caroline and a mobile home resident, and also the project coordinator at Sustainable Finger Lakes. And I just want to start by saying thank you so much to the Tompkins County Legislature for awarding a community recovery grant to our organization for the mobile home pilot project. And we have really appreciated the opportunity, and it's just kind of mushroomed with all sorts of other kind of synchronistic opportunities, like the working group that we're talking about today. I also really want to thank the staff and the county. Kristen McCarthy was the first person I spoke with, and she was tremendously helpful. Jay Franklin provided all the data that we needed to apply for the grant, and also to be as informed as this group is about how many mobile homes, where they are. So incredibly helpful. Tom Palmer spoke with us about environmental health issues at each park and the inspections. So we have had, and Randy, of course, has been with our working group since the beginning. We've so appreciated having him there. So I just wanted to let you all know that the county has been a partner already, a great partner. The mobile home pilot project has been, in my view, a successful pilot project, and we think it's been a great investment from the county. And what we'd really like to see is that investment continue. We don't want it to be a one-off. That's why we're part of the mobile home working group. That's why we're, partnered with so many other wonderful organizations around the county. And I think it's not the time for me to do a big report out about the project, but I would love to be able to do that to the legislature at some point, or to this committee at least. I will say just briefly that for the project, which was launched last May 2023, as I think everybody here probably already knows on the legislature, that the goal of the project was upgrading the mobile homes, 50 mobile homes in the county. Our part of it was providing funding for heat pumps installation and for electrical panel upgrades. And then that's designed to stack with all the other funding out there from NYSERDA and Clean Heat, et cetera, to get residents as close to zero as we could get them, to make it affordable for these very expensive upgrades. Often $25,000 is a normal number for a mobile home upgrade, but it has significant energy efficiency benefits, and also comfort and health and safety benefits for the residents. So, so I received at least 128 calls about the program from Tompkins County residents. I've completed 77 home visits. That's part of our process, to actually go and talk with people. So that in itself has developed relationships and a lot of information from residents about their life experiences, not just the technical side of their home, but health issues, family issues, challenges and work or whatever. They've been really, I've really appreciated meeting every single household. The approved projects for our funding so far, we have 19 approved projects. It's a pretty slow process, and the challenges and obstacles, I'll go into it another time if there's opportunity to speak to you again. But so far we have 16 completed projects with heat pumps installed, or sometimes an additional electric panel upgrade if needed, and 3 more projects, so 19 altogether, that were just insulation because of various reasons that's all they could do in their home. And there's 28 projects in progress right now. as well. So when you add that all up, you're close to 50, but I expect that those in-progress numbers will fall off. So I think we've reached 50 yet, just because there's so many different challenges, variety of challenges. But in addition to challenges, there's just this great opportunities with mobile homes. I think in our group, we talk about so many creative solutions. We've talked about just mobile home parks in themselves are communities. They're already established communities where you can have community gardens. You can do some of the ideas that we've floated about working with a group called Window Dressers, where you build like it's a barn raising concept where you're building inserts for windows for insulation in the wintertime, because windows are sort of still something that's not that funded for mobile homes. So there's, and the opportunities right now, as I said, the synchronicity we've been kind of wowed by. I think, Chuck, I'll pass it to him because he, from my perspective, I got involved because of Chuck. He had written a white paper about mobile homes as affordable housing. And then when he and I met, for me, that's when it took off. I felt like there was, a lot of interest. So, we have Cornell, we have the county legislature, we have advocates like Chuck, we have a lot of energy that we'd really like to see a continued partnership with the county and, a lot of brainstorming back and forth if we can, because we'd like to see this benefit. As Randy said, there's 4,000 mobile home households in this county. We'd like to see it be more because we need affordable housing. We'd like to be able to have, a model community potentially where we're looking at the best, for energy efficiency and affordability and for a good community. So I'll stop there and turn it over to Chuck.
Chuck, before you jump in, if I may, Holly, thank you for that update. If you wouldn't mind sharing some of those numbers or statistics that you shared in that report with me via email, I'd love to be able to report that out to the legislature at our next meeting when we do sort of a recap of this. And I was trying to write as fast, but then I figured if you just send them to me, it'd be easier.
I'll be writing in the next couple weeks. I'll be writing my final report because I'll be leaving my position. I'll be done with my part of the grant, and then there'll be several months where Gay Nicholson, my boss, will be completing. I'll be submitting the data, and she'll be doing some closing. So I'll be happy to get the full report that I write to you. And then I think there'll be another one, in a few months. So thank you for requesting that, because I'd love to share it.
Thank you. And then I was just having a little sidebar here with Ann. And we think probably our peak committee of planning, energy and environmental quality committee, with both Annie, Veronica, I guess who are we missing? We're missing one. We're pretty much all on that committee as well. And that may be, Amanda Champion, yes. That probably would be the most appropriate committee to talk about the energy efficiency, environmental impacts, those type of things in the peak committee. So there's a little overlap between the two committees, but that's why we sit next to each other. So.
And there's a lot of overlap in the members.
Yes, yeah. So it'd be good to have that conversation there. So I can help connect everybody together for that. So sorry for the interjection, Chuck.
Thank you to my colleagues. This has been really good to hear. And the last year and a half of meeting, we feel like we're really getting traction. We've surveyed a lot of landscape, and this is a big one in Tompkins County. One thing that may not be obvious to you folks on the committee is that we're in a bit of a hurry, by which I mean the following. I think it was Randy who mentioned that there are more or less 40 of these mobile home communities in Tompkins County. 26 of them are owned by outside investor corporations, and only 12 of them remain to be or are privately owned. And it's like dominoes. We're worried. And one of the reasons that we meet and take this so seriously is because we're up against professionals who are very good at identifying low-hanging housing fruit and clipping it off, rather than for the kinds of things that I think you hear us saying. So that was one point. The other, it's easy to, because this is such a green community, it's easy to talk about energy efficiency in mobile homes and sort of take for granted, well, of course, of course. What's maybe not so obvious is that to the extent that our manufactured housing stock could be classified as poorer housing, it's more expensive from an energy standpoint to live in poorer housing because energy, it leaks, it goes away. And so what Holly just reported on is wonderful news, and thanks to the county for taking the risk and betting on that work and allowing Holly and the organization to provide feedback, and hopefully we can go on and it won't be a one-off. But just let me bear down on the point of energy efficiency. To the extent that you can manage heat pumps or solarization or other energy efficiency, this is obviously wonderful. But if it's leaking out, then we might be throwing good money after bad. And our solution to that, both collectively as we talk to each other and learn from each other and from out of state, from other examples, is that energy efficiency probably has to start with weatherization and rather full scales and fully scoped weatherization. So the town of Dryden, for instance, is on the cusp of starting what we hope will be a 50 manufactured home weatherization initiative in those mobile homes in our town, which income qualify. And then again, we view it as a pilot and we hope that it will spill into the other towns in the county. I can't emphasize enough how easy it is to look at the 4,000 mobile homes in Tompkins County, multiply that times 3 or 4 for just a population estimate of what we're talking about population-wise, and let's assume that half of those homes, those residences, are in trouble from an energy standpoint. And I don't think I'm overestimating it in saying that. I'm probably being conservative. If we can intervene at the energy level, weatherization, heat pumps, et cetera, we have a chance of keeping those people comfortable, safe, less reliance on unsafe kinds of heating devices that often burn down mobile homes and other poorer housing when that happens. So I guess the point is that here's an opportunity when we struggle in Tompkins County to fulfill what the housing snapshot says we should be attempting to do in terms of affordable housing. We have it right before our eyes, hidden in not so plain view. Sometimes it's really hidden away, but we have the opportunity to do a bang-up job with the mobile home community as a collective effort along the lines of what you've already heard, and I hope we can continue to partner with you to do it.
Great. Well, thank you for coming, and we have a few minutes, for questions. If anybody has any questions or comments, just want to make sure we keep the agenda moving because we do have some other meaty topics as well to discuss, or plant-based topics to discuss too, depending if people don't eat meat. So, any questions for the folks? Ann?
Not a question, but a comment. First off, thank you so much for doing all this research, working on this issue, and really being an advocate. I know that's a big part of it too, and getting this information to us. And well, I guess one quick question. So about 4,000 manufactured homes in Tompkins County, and about a quarter are older than 1976. So about 1,000 that are 50 years older. They're real hard to retrofit. And then, so maybe that'd be a further discussion, or if you guys are working on that, but so you mentioned in the report about trying to apply for funds from New York State to replace them, so we don't have to go into that, but I'm just seeing that as a next step. And I just also wanted to mention, you mentioned, financial, about financial issues, energy issues. Want to also mention I've done a lot of work over the years in buildings and energy efficiency, but also thinking about people's health. That you're in a small manufactured home. You start to tighten it up, and if there's some issues, those are exacerbated, whether it's you're cooking with a gas stove or whatever other issues there could be when you're tightening it up. So you really do have to deal with that. And I ran into a woman who's 84 the other day who lives at Compass, just on the edge of Trumansburg, and I had something for free on one of those sites, and she came to pick this up for her daughter who was having some medical issues, but they were both in different manufactured homes at Compass. And I know because I had gone door to door there before, and I had met, I didn't know if the mother was there, but really the grandmother had met the young kids who were there with other friends. So they were doing what Randy was saying, like it's affordable housing. There was 3 or 4 of them, in one place across the way. It was the mother. I didn't realize the grandmother also lived there. And and because they can live so close, they can walk back and forth. And anyway, they really talked about, or she really talked about, she was happy about being bought by INHS and the improvements that are happening there. I won't go into all of them, but there's a ton of improvements, and I was glad to hear that she was happy about that.
I just want to echo the gratitude for the work that's done here. I've often thought that manufactured housing was a really viable option to rapidly increase our housing stock. I'm a strong believer that we need a variety of housing stock, not just one type or the other, but a plethora of options. And I also am a strong believer that home ownership, if that's what one desires, is a great way to create financial freedom and independence and build some personal wealth and those type of things. So. And they also, because of the name manufactured homes, they're able to be produced at a speed that is far greater than stick-built construction. There are some environmental challenges with existing stock. My comments will mostly focus on sort of the future. I know that we've got a lot of dedicated people working to address the environmental concerns and the environmental impact of housing stock that we currently have. But what I would like to see is those park resident-owned communities pop up, those type of things. The county not having land use control. I really think all of us who are supportive of this should lean on our town, village, city counterparts, whatever the case may be, to make park development something that is destigmatized, that it is viewed as building communities with the right type of housing for the right type of place. And I think having some of this conversation also too helps to destigmatize the idea of trailer parks or manufactured home communities or mobile home parks, whatever the case may be, whatever the term being used is. And that's really important because these do provide homes for many people, and it's an affordable way to do that. So I'm looking at Katie, Megan, and Shauna on the screen from our Planning and Sustainability Department to continue the conversation. Also, often what happens here is that the seed gets planted and then we take some time, let it germinate, and work together to figure out what the roles might be, what the collaboration possibilities, and then come back for an additional conversation and look to the county's work plan and how this all fits into the greater scheme. And Katie and Megan, not to put you on the spot now, but I do think that there seems to be a general sense from members of the committee and probably enough members of the legislature to look at what is a way that the county can be supportive, beyond how we already are supporting the process. But what is the next step, or what could we do? I don't know if that's a question for today, but it's a question to, keep on the agenda, and we can have some conversations offline and then bring something back to the committee. But I do think that this is a way where we could have a dramatic impact on housing availability and affordability in a relatively short period of time if partnered with the right type of nonprofit developer, the right type of town or village with the desire to have more communities within their borders, and then how the county can play a supportive role in whatever that might be for this process, which I'm not sure yet, but I look forward to working with the three professional staff we have here on the screen and a part of the team at the county to figure out what we might be able to do to move the ball a little bit further.
Thank you.
All right. Katie or Megan or Sean, if there's anything you want to add, if not, we can pick up the conversation at another time.
I would just add that Shauna has started, she's new on staff, but she started attending the manufactured housing working group meetings. So she's our eyes and ears to try to see how we can be helpful. And also just to point out that the one pilot program that is actually being implemented right now is the INHS program, the Compass program out in Trumansburg, and our housing fund, which takes a huge amount of our staff time, did play a significant role in making that happen. So just something the county already has done, and we will certainly look for ways to further this housing stock. It's a great conversation, so thanks for having it.
Thank you. All right, well, I'm going to wrap up this agenda item, so I appreciate the time and energy and commitment to this process, and we're going to move on to the next topic. But thank you again for coming.
Very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up on, we have a report discussion, Tompkins County Workers Center. This is about a local minimum wage ID number 12556, and we have Pete Myers here from the Workers Center, as well as some guests that will be accompanying him in the conversation. This will be followed by a resolution to look at implementing a higher county minimum wage with a local law needing to be established, and that's sponsored by Legislator Pillar. And so these two conversations will move into one, and we've got about 30 minutes or so for the whole conversation, if that works for everybody. So I'll stop talking so you can start.
Great. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everybody, for having us here today. My name is Pete Myers. I'm one of the founders and the present-day director of the Tompkins County Workers Center. Many of you know that we've been working on living wage issues for a long time. In fact, we started out as a living wage coalition back in 2003 and became the Workers Center in 2006. A group of us are here today to agitate for a local minimum wage that's higher than a living wage. The present New York State minimum wage, as you may know, is $15 an hour for upstate. It will be increasing to $15.50 this coming January 1st, and $16 on January 1st, 2026. Just to let you know, a fair amount of locales around the country have actually increased their minimum wage to a living wage in various locales. Whether it was a living wage, they increased it higher. So basically, what we're looking is for Tompkins County to do something similar. We want to get legislation passed that would require that. As you might imagine, the minimum income to survive in Tompkins County is considerably higher than many counties in upstate New York. So it's, the cost of living here is out of control, and we don't need to belabor that point. And just kind of like, this might have been mentioned at the meeting 2 months ago of the HED, but it's kind of looking like the living wage will increase to around the $24 an hour range in November of this year, and that we're actually potentially living in $24 an hour range right now, and that it would appear to be the cost of housing that's really raising that more than anything. We have some workers here that will be speaking about the need for a living wage, and I will first start with Michael Demo. Michael, if you could just tell where you work and tell your story.
Hi, yeah, thank you. So My name's Michael. I would be personally affected by the proposed change to the minimum wage. I work
Bring
at
the mic a little closer, about 5 inches from your.
Sorry, is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, I work at a hardware store here in Ithaca. And I just wanted to call your attention to an aspect of this that policymakers might not immediately think of. I think there's been a lot of talk about how expensive it is to be poor, but people don't always realize that it's also just really hard. In particular, it takes a lot of time and energy when you're trying to get by on such low wages as we have right now, and that's on top of the work that you do. It can be extremely stressful, obviously, especially when things go wrong. You can imagine the details of that. It's really like having another full-time job, just trying to live on these wages. So people I know in this situation all have much better things to be doing with their time, frankly. One friend of mine, who's also a coworker, would love to devote more of her time to her children as a single mom. Another is an accomplished crochet artist who would like to sell more of her work on the side. Myself, I'd be grateful for more time and energy to invest in my ongoing vocational training. Now, if you think about it, a devoted mother, an artist or burgeoning small business owner, and a qualified skilled worker have a lot of value, obviously, economic and otherwise. That value is so significant that I think this is a situation that really cries out for regulatory intervention. If you make this change, modest as it is, workers like me will be able to devote more of our free time to living our lives in productive and valuable ways. That's a boon to the local economy, to our whole community, even to the very employers who will be paying us more. So in a word, the question is, do you want us capable, hardworking wage earners to continue mostly using our time outside of work, just fighting to survive on inadequate wages? Do you want to continue to task us with that, even though we can do so much more, a lot of which is just out of reach for us right now? Or do you want more of us to have a real chance to have the time and energy to do all sorts of good and great things, and frankly, also just ordinary things as your neighbors here in Tompkins County? That's what a living wage would really mean for us.
Thanks, Michael. Our next speaker has been a longtime worker at Cornell University, and she now happens to be the president of the United Auto Workers Local 2300, Christine Johnson.
I am Christine Johnson, president of UAW Local 2300. We are an amalgamated local union with 7 contracts, the largest unit being Cornell University Service and Maintenance at around 1,200 members within that unit. We also represent TCAT bus operators, mechanics, and custodial, Tompkins County Public Library professional and support staff, Finger Lakes Library systems staff, Ithaca Housing Authority maintenance staff, and the water treatment and clerical staff at Bolton Point. We are currently negotiating a new agreement, our 14th, with Cornell, one that includes demands for significant wage increases. Our UAW Cornell labor grades run from SO2 to S12, with the overall majority of the membership holding SO2 positions in Cornell dining and building care. At this time, these positions pay under $21 an hour. The vast majority of our members, 70 to 75%, cannot afford to live in Ithaca and don't. Of those that do live in Ithaca, about half live in areas that have been considered low-income residences. My labor grade is S10 in my regular non-president Cornell position, earning $28.17 an hour at this time. I live 55 minutes from my job because living closer is not financially feasible. The additional expenses incurred from increased commute times and the required reliable transportation that goes with it eats up much of the offset for lower housing costs outside of Ithaca and Tompkins County. I live in a 2-income household, my partner making $20.03 an hour at Cornell Dining. We struggle financially and do without a lot of extras. $21 an hour is not a sustainable wage even for a single person without dependents. $21 an hour for people with families that depend on them makes it very difficult to even hope to sustain basic essential needs. We need a reset on what is just, fair, and good for people who work full-time jobs, pay taxes, and also vote. A minimum wage that is a true living wage will secure the futures of our members and also the communities that have not yet organized their workplaces. People will spend in the communities they live and work in if they have it to spend, increasing the tax base and community businesses' revenue. Thank you for your ear.
Thanks, Christine. Our next speaker is the Vice President of the United Auto Workers Local 2300, John Taveras.
How's it going, everybody? I've been on campus for about the last 12 years. I started as a dishwasher through a temp agency where I think it was Workforce at the time. I worked my way from a dishwasher to a line cook to a lead to an audiovisual tech. Now I'm a maintenance mechanic on campus. A change in the living wage would be huge for a good portion, or for honestly every single one of our members. Most of our members aren't local, to the point where we have them commuting an hour and a half. I've known people who have driven as far as Sayre to be able to come to Cornell to work. I remember when I started out, things weren't too horrible there. It afforded me to buy my first house. Things weren't bad. It's gotten to the point now where wages have kind of plateaued, and I'm at the point now where I own my house, but property taxes have gone up, everything's gone up. Insurance on your car in New York State has gone up 20% alone in the last year. And it's getting to the point where something's going to have to change for most of us, or we're going to have to figure someplace else out to live, someplace else to work, so that we can come home and have families.
Thanks, John. Yeah. I'd like to introduce Chauncey Bennett, a member of the United Auto Workers.
Hello, my name is Chauncey Bennett. I'm a zone representative of UAW Local 2300, working at Cornell University. I am also an adjunct instructor at Tompkins Community College, teaching audio engineering and audio production. I am a freelance live audio engineer and percussionist in this area. And my union brothers and sisters have spoken a lot about what living wage would give us, and I would like to instead focus on what a lack of a living wage does to our ability and the county in general. First and foremost, my union siblings and I cannot afford to live in Ithaca or most of the county. I work 3 jobs. My wife works 1 job. I rent out the 3rd bedroom of my 3-bedroom house, and we still cannot afford to save up enough money to come and live in Ithaca. I am about halfway up the grade scale. I'm an SO5 out of 12 grades on campus, and we simply cannot do it. In turn, this is a less sustainable way of life for the majority of people working at Cornell in our union. We don't have the ability to afford electric vehicles. We don't have the ability to afford hybrid vehicles. We don't have the ability to afford new vehicles. In my entire adult life, I have never been able to own a new motor vehicle of any kind. That means that the vehicles that we're constantly commuting to work, sometimes up to an hour and a half, are not fuel efficient. We are consistently adding more carbon, more greenhouse gases to the local environment every single day that we are forced to commute. Right now, we are currently negotiating our contract with Cornell. It is absolutely an uphill battle for us to get the wages that we need from Cornell. And we are in dire need of any appreciation and help that we can get from anyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Chauncey. Our last speaker today will be Lonnie Everett, who's with the United Auto Workers as well. Lonnie, would you like to have a seat?
Hi, I'm Lonnie Everett. I'm with the United Auto Workers. I'm an international service and rep with UAW Region 9. Cornell University, or UAW 2300, falls under my assignment. And I can speak to you about, Cornell. I can speak to you about living wages, because that's what we do. Every place that we see, every contract that we've done, especially over the last year, especially since COVID, when I was shop chairman in the facility back home, if wages don't meet people's needs, then they're consistently not focused on the primary job that you've hired them for. They're consistently focused on trying to live hand to mouth. They're consistently focused on working multiple jobs. And we know that that is not proper when you start thinking about work-life balance. We know that that's not proper when you look at what COVID has done, whatever side of the coin people stand on with COVID, you look at the impact, you look at how people have struggled coming back from that. That's not what you want. You don't want people to have to sit here for the basic things that they should be entitled to when they're going to work. It doesn't matter whether they're working for you in the county, if they're working for an employer who certainly can afford to make sure that their workers are sharing in the sacrifice. I can tell you all about the big three. You saw all about that in the paper. But even coming out of those contracts, when we look at the cost of living without getting COLA back in those contracts, it made it tough to have a sustainable lifestyle as costs continue to rise. So I probably can't even relate to you how significant it is to have a living wage. I mean, I can think back to when we were fighting for 15, fighting for 20, and fighting for 10, all focused on the same things, giving people the ability to thrive again, giving people a sense of dignity in their lifestyle. Folks just want to go to work. Folks should be able to go to work at 40 hours a week. They should be able to take care of that household. They should have an expectation of savings. They should have an expectation of health care and doing the things that the country was built off of that American dream. It makes it pretty tough in today's world where that's not realized when you have employers, in some cases, certainly when it comes down to corporations, that are making significantly more than the employees that they are having to perform those services that allow them to sit where they're sitting, that allows them to get their pay and their compensation packages. It is so very important for people to feel dignity in what they do, but also have dignity in that household because they can actually come home and take care of the household without worrying what that looks like to put groceries on the table. You know, I can run down a lot of data, but you know what it's like every day when you go out, when you're making a purchase just to get a bottle of water. I won't even go to the coffee, right? Just when you're buying a gallon of milk, just when you're buying basic things, those things cost significantly more in today's world. And why don't we have wages that meet those type of standards? We ask for more and more from folks. We ask folks to put themselves on the line because they're considered to be critical workers during times of a pandemic or epidemic, during times of inclement weather, and not just inclement weather, but dangerous inclement weather. But we don't want to pay them for that? That does not make sense. We want people to build. We want people to spend disposable incomes. You want them to purchase houses and pay rent and everything else within the areas that they're in. How can they do that if they cannot afford to do the basics? How can they do that if they're consistently worried about whether their vehicle is going to be able to make it from point A to point B? Why do we have an expectation that somebody should not have the extras when they get their coffee, as opposed to saying that they should have the extras when they go out and work every single day to take care of folks? Do we ever consider the sacrifices that workers do make? Do we ever consider the sacrifices that retirees have made and continue to make? You need a living wage and sustainable incomes just to maintain not the folks who are working, but also the folks who are not working at this point in time, to contribute to good, healthy tax bases that give us the type of things that we clearly enjoy. Everybody that's sitting in here has something that they want that's not out of the ordinary. It's not something that's extravagant. They want to live, and they want to be at peace with that. And they also want to be able to have a family who's at peace. I used to always tell folks during orientation, you come in here to punch the clock. I understand that. And I'm hoping that we evolve and develop and make you a better person, and make you a better person when you leave out of here for your household and for your communities, so we can have a better world. How can we have a better world when we continuously have to fight about class, especially when those things are there? You know, people will talk about those auto contracts, and they'll talk about how much a car has gone up since then. Well, I can tell you that when we took a pay cut that was very significant back in 2007, and then the auto industry went through the bankruptcies in 2008, cars continue to go up. Had nothing to do with the contracts. It had everything to do with how businesses manage. That is the same type of argument that I have at the table consistently. That does not change. I sure in the hell get tired of telling people the same thing over and over. People are sitting here asking you to be able to live. They're not asking you to stop your business. They're not asking you to take food off of your table. There's nothing that we proposed at any agreement that is going to not help an employer move forward, because it only makes sense that everybody is sustainable. The worker is asking for the same thing. When we have workers who are working, such as Cornell, and I'll use that as an example, and they're paying for parking at the employer to perform a job, what type of sense does that make? I saw that when I was down south organizing. I saw how the worker would consistently have to pay the employer back, seemingly under some type of a gracious program, just so they could obtain a vehicle or obtain real estate or just obtain a place to live. And sure, it was fantastic that the employer offered it, but the employer also mandated that they worked overtime, which meant that every piece of that check that they were getting was going back to the employer. That's not the country that any of you saw. That's not the country that folks have fought for before us. That's not the country that folks have died for before us. We should always look at everybody else as if that could be us. Because even though I went through pay cuts on multiple occasions in my 24-year career, and I'm blessed to stand before you today, not without challenges, I also recognize that I could be one situation away from being in somebody else's shoes. It's from being in the person's shoes that just, they're asking for a helping hand. That could be me and my family at any point in time. Being an international rep or working for anybody does not help us escape those things. We all know someone who's had a life-changing event that changed their circumstances dramatically overnight. A living wage is not too much to ask for, considering that in today's world, most folks are not working 30 years. Most folks are working, unfortunately, 35, 40, 45 years, 51 years. That's what the average is looking like from the folks that I'm talking to. And I get that data likes to survey the people that they love to hear from to get their point across, but it's different when you're talking to folks. It's different when you're looking at folks. It's different when somebody's coming to you and they're asking you, how can I make it from today to the next day? A living wage, good contracts, those are the type of things that help people decide what their life looks like. It helps folks plan their lives. It helps them plan for medical events. It helps them plan for the things, unfortunately, that come to us. People should have the opportunity to do that. Not just because I'm standing here as somebody who negotiates contracts and who has been through those things, but because I'm a human being. And when I see folks that are struggling, when we have the ability to change that, that bothers me. And it should bother anybody who sits in a chair that has the ability to change somebody's life in a positive way. If I want to go out and enjoy a coffee with a little extra whipped cream, so what? But that's not the reason why I may not be able to live day to day. And that's not why a lot of folks in here are asking the questions that they're asking, the folks that you see on a regular basis. It's because of the basic things that we're not providing for them. The standards that we have not kept up with as the cost of living and the cost of everything else has gone up. And now when you start talking about environmental concerns, when you start talking about trying to get right with the environment and make sure that we're doing the things to take care of that, there's costs behind that type of transition. I mean, we're concerned in the auto industry about what it looks like if people start going to EVs, because we're concerned about what our manpower is going to look like in facilities, especially when you start looking at, if I go back to when we did the pay cuts, you know, we probably had 50 to 100,000 more people across the entire industry. We know what that looks like as we start to move into EV. The question is, can the retired worker afford that? Will my grandparents, will they move into an EV? Will they be able to worry about what the environment looks like and to be able to prepare for that? Can people who are working do that? In some cases, you have folks who are retired that are doing way better economically than the people who are actually working. And there's nothing wrong with that because they should, because they've paved the way for us. We need to be able to pave the way as well. People are not asking for a lot. They're just asking to be able to live. When you hear me talk about that, that's what I'm concerned about. That's what you hear in my voice. Because I watch a lot of folks who are not able to live, and there are folks who are all right with that. I'm not.
Thanks so much, Lonnie. That was powerful. That's our last speaker. I thought that we would watch, I think we have time to watch a 3.5-minute video about the campaign at Cornell, which really relates to us all. I will also say, if you think about the percentage of workers in this county that do not have a union to agitate for higher wages for them, that's why this is so important, this campaign that we're doing here.
Just for clarification, the video is for, what's the video for?
It's part of, it's the Cornell living wage campaign and talking about the importance of a living wage.
Okay. Did we had a link to that on the agenda, right?
Yeah.
What time did we start?
4 o'clock.
Total of 30 minutes.
Yeah.
We could not do it.
Yeah, I want to, so my hesitation, Pete, again, comes into the role in which we play in the conversation as it relates to the relationship with Cornell, the workers, et cetera, and if it makes sense, and I guess I would look to my colleagues on the committee if there's any objection to that. If there's not, happy to move forward. I just want to make sure that we're clear and that we're not being, that this conversation is focused and tailored to the relationship to the county, looking at increasing a local minimum wage. Again, so many of us are supportive of the process and the right to organize and all of those type of things, but just want to be mindful of the platform and the stage in which we're on and engaging in those type of conversations. So if there's not objection, I say we could potentially view that, but I just want to make sure that it's pertinent to the conversation as it relates to the resolution at hand. And I guess that would be a question to you as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I think the resolution could be voted on without it.
Would this be the last thing before we would maybe?
Yes.
Well, I guess there could be discussion too.
Veronica?
I think it would be fine to watch the video if we're saying it's clear that, well, it sounds like the video is about a living wage campaign targeted at Cornell. That's not what we're discussing here, but the motivations and the life situations and things described are going to be relevant.
It's expressing the same need that everybody else has who's not at Cornell.
Yeah. But then I'm also concerned about time, if that would leave us no time for voting.
It'll leave time for discussion and voting. We'll just compress some of the other agenda items. I want to make sure that we're clearly state on the record what the purpose and intent was. So I just, again, I'm not trying to express an opinion. I'm just trying to navigate the nuances of all of this.
Totally understood.
All right. So Rob, if you're queued up and ready to go, if there's no other objection, we'll move forward.
When I arrived here in April of 2005, I was not only able to afford all of my financial obligations, but there was a little something left over.
When I grew up, I remember hearing about getting into Cornell, that you'd be set for life.
I actually came to Cornell because at the time I was a single mom and I was working 2 jobs. I needed 1 job to spend more time with my kids, making the same amount of money.
It was easier for me to make a living back then in the late 80s here in Ithaca than it is now.
I'm struggling more than I ever have in my life.
I don't own a single thing in this life other than a 12-year-old car. You know, I don't have the money to marry and have kids if I want to.
The Cornell founders would be turning over in their graves if they knew how Cornell was treating their employees.
Cannot even imagine how anyone nowadays can afford to live in Ithaca.
I cannot afford to live in Ithaca. I gotta repeat that. I cannot.
It's more expensive to live here, whether it's the rent, the groceries, taxes if you own your home.
You cannot live here and work on that salary because you won't eat.
There was a time when I did live in Ithaca. I was maybe a 10-minute drive from where I am now.
I live an hour away. I drive an hour. So for me, it's an expense to pay $100 a week in gas.
Either way, everyone is getting the shaft where they live.
Parking. Yes, you too can spend 1/10 of your paycheck on parking. A lot of people can't do that, and they have to park in the free parking area, which is all the way across campus.
People are tired of having to park a half an hour away from where they work and have to depend on a bus that may or may not be on time.
And we have to be here in a timely manner, so we can't sort of just say like, oh, well, we're a little bit late. Like, that's not an allowance in our situation.
Getting on a bus, making a million stops, is not something a person who has a family waiting wants to do.
House is a double, tax is a double, food is a double, institution is double also. Everything double, but our pay is not double.
A cost of living allowance would go a long way in helping people keeping their head above the economic waters.
If you're not getting a COLA increase, then you're getting a pay cut.
But we're chronically short-staffed. We're chronically dealing with at least 1 or 2 positions absent.
And that feeling increased over the years. We were starting to doubt whether we could do our job.
So that's where you get into a situation where you're working 7, 8 days in a row, but you don't get overtime. So they burn out. So then you're more likely to lose more people.
And let's not fool ourselves. This is an institution, learning institution, but it's also a corporation. They're getting their raises. We are not.
They take us for granted.
During COVID, we're the only ones on campus keeping it afloat.
We are not adequately recognized and compensated. That's the bottom line.
We are the heart, the soul, the backbone of Cornell University.
Hopefully that dream, just being able to have a living wage, will become a reality.
We want a fair contract for the work that we're giving you. Plain and simple.
We are, in fact, ready to do what we need to do to earn a decent living.
All right, well, first, I want to thank all of you for taking some time out of what I'm sure is busy days and sharing your perspective with us and entering your voice into the conversation. And that's why we're having the next portion of our meeting here is to try to recognize and grapple, and from the seats in which we sit in, try to understand how we can make an impact. I know for me personally, I do this because I do see the ability to improve the quality of life for everyone in Tompkins County, for those that work here, for those that visit here, for those that live here, and really for all. So thank you. Your voice has been heard, and this is just the beginning of the conversation. You know, I wish you all well in your journeys, in your career, in your negotiations, and whatever comes your way, and know that your concerns are not unheard, and that we will do. Or let me rephrase that. I will do whatever I can to support that. It may not be exactly what everyone's looking for as legislation works its way through the legislature, but that's the process. And from this committee, I hope to just shepherd that process and that conversation. So thank you again, and hopefully we'll see you again at another meeting at some point. So. Enjoy the rest of the beautiful day. I now would just want to turn it over to Legislator Pillar for I guess I'd look for a motion and a second for the resolution, the implementation of a higher county minimum wage with local law establishments, ID 12555. It's moved by Veronica, second. Second by Ann Koreman. Veronica, I guess I'll turn it over to you for a brief introduction. Also, Maury Josephine, our county attorney, is here as well if there's any questions from members of the committee on the topic. Just, Veronica, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Greg. So we've already heard the reasoning why to embark on trying to increase the countywide minimum wage. What this particular resolution does is it directs our county staff to do the work necessary, both like figuring out legal things, collaborating with community stakeholders and whatnot to determine what higher minimum wage policy would be sustainable and effective in Tompkins County that we could then bring forward as an actual local law to propose, hear from the public, and vote on. And this resolution is not the policy itself, not the law itself, but it's a necessary step because to craft something that works, I think that requires investment of time, both community engagement and legal and other types of research on the back end, and we can't direct our staff to do that unless the legislature is more or less on board with it together. So that's what this resolution is about, and as for why this is important, our guests said it better than I could.
Maury, is there anything that you'd like to add into the conversation or weigh in on as it relates to the resolution at hand?
I wouldn't weigh in on the substance of what the collective group wants to accomplish, but I would weigh in on a process issue that should be kept in mind in terms of the time, effort, and resources that would be needed to address the issue, and that is there's a long-standing New York Court of Appeal, and I'll just keep this at 38,000 feet so that we don't need to get into an executive session on the weeds of this, but there's a Court of Appeals case, the highest court in New York State, from the mid-1960s, Wholesale Laundry versus City of New York, where the City of New York attempted to adopt a local minimum wage, and the Court of Appeals said that was preempted by New York state law, that the state legislature has control over what minimum wages prevail in the state of New York, and that holding was reaffirmed as recently as 2006. So if adopting a local minimum wage, it should be borne in mind that that effort would involve, if challenged, and assuming it would be challenged, an effort to overturn longstanding precedent. And hopefully there would be help with that in terms of obtaining pro bono counsel and the like to do that, but the county should be aware that it would, number one, be sort of at the vanguard of obtaining this reversal, which is a very an uncertain prospect, like any litigation, and that it would involve a substantial expenditure of effort by my office as well as across the administration.
Great. I appreciate the insight and some of the finer details of the process. Any comments or questions by members of the committee? Travis, Ann, Veronica? Ann?
Yeah, I want to thank my colleagues and everybody in the community, the staff, all the folks that came here, today to talk to us, and all the other folks that are working out there on a day-to-day basis. I've been there at times in my life. My family's been there, working 2 or 3 jobs. You're just working to live, or you're living to work, and then you come home and you're tired and you're not eating right, and you don't have time to do anything with your family or have a family. when I was doing that, there was just no way I was going to have a family either. So I think the county, as for myself, I will speak as a legislator. If this is something that I can help with, I think it's my duty to help with and do the best that we can to bring this forward at our level and then go into the state level, because people deserve to have that right to be able to have a job that pays for your basic expenses, and working 40 hours a week to do that, not have to work two or three jobs. So thank you for coming forward, and I'll do the best I can.
Travis Brooks.
I'm always for paying people their value and what they're worth. I do know we have an issue, especially in this county, with the cost of living, and I do think that folks should be paid more. I like the way Veronica Miller put this together. That is the idea of the community and legislatures and staff getting together to kind of look at what this could look like. I like the idea of bringing people together to address an issue. I do hope that we are able to put together some options so we know what things look like moving forward, especially given what the county attorney just said. I don't want to put a whole lot on county staff to get to a place where we spend an excess time in litigation. So it would be great if we could look at, even if the first steps were to look at, is this something that can be done before we spend a lot of time figuring out what that looks like. I will support anything that allows for folks to get more money in this community. But I want to make sure it's not an effort in vain because staff are overburdened as it is.
Thank you. Do you have Veronica, or take a turn if you don't?
I guess I'll say, I agree with Travis, and thank you. And I think in parallel of the process starting the process of looking at what would an increased minimum wage law look like, or you notice I'm not saying living wage, which I would love to have, but it may or may not get that far. That would be part of the work coming down the pipe, hopefully. We've had some separate conversations with other people outside of this county, but interested in this topic about what support around potential legal challenges might look like. Nothing's locked down, but I think that's also gathering support from others for that so as not to burden our staff is a thing that we are looking at.
So I just want to make sure that from my standpoint, I'm clear and that we're clear on what this resolution is asking for. This is really just sort of hitting the ball off the tee. And this is not knowing what course we're playing, what the par is, like what anything is ahead of us. We know that there's going to need to be some additional steps along the way, but really this is the committee asking the full legislature, if this passes, to start the conversation within the committee to understand what the local law may look like, to hear from workers, to hear from employers, to hear from community members, to hear from all perspectives of the conversation, to understand what type of resources from outside are available to support this process, and to really bring that all together to then make a decision if a local law were to be drafted and to move forward in the process. That's all this is doing, is just getting the majority of people on the same page if this were to pass. I say that, so I do have a slight objection to the last two resolves because it has more of a definitive and directive voice than exploratory and where it asked further that the county legislature directs the county administrator to allocate resources. I'm uncomfortable with allocating resources, not knowing what those resources may be, and those resources are called for public outreach, education, and technical assistance programs to support employers in complying with wage requirements and transitions to fair wage practices. I think those would maybe be part of a local law resolution if we were to get to that point. And then the last resolved, which is further that the county legislature commits to regularly reviewing and evaluating the impact of the policy on workers, businesses, and overall economy, and making necessary adjustments. We don't have a policy yet in place. So I guess I look to my colleagues on the committee. If we were to remove those two resolves, I feel that the resolution still achieves the goal without having a definitive voice in either directing resources and evaluating something that hasn't taken place yet. But I think it's good language for the future. We should clip those and save them if this moves forward.
That's fine with me. I think the key part is in there were three resolved. So the first one, which says resolved that the county legislature directs the county attorney, county administrator, and other county staff as needed to collaborate with community stakeholders to develop an effective and sustainable minimum wage policy and draft a local law outlining the specifics of the policy, including the calculation methodology, annual adjustment mechanism, enforcement provisions, and any exemptions or special considerations deemed necessary. And the other two pieces, you're right, I think would be important to the whole process, but maybe at a later step of the process.
Yeah.
So I would be friendly.
Would that be, if I make an amendment to remove the last two resolved, which would be line 25 through 31, would there be any objection from members of the committee?
I say go for it.
Okay.
It's friendly to me.
Great, I'm gonna move that then, if there's a second.
Oh, well, it's friendly to me and it's friendly to
I need a second though. No?
Not if it's friendly, but Travis is raising his hand.
All right, so if it's friendly, then, Travis, do you have any objection to removing those?
I was raising my hand when you were asking for a second.
Got it.
Okay.
All right, so I've got a second to my motion. It's friendly. So we'll just move on from there with those two removed.
Taylor's got it.
Great. Taylor, you know what we're doing? All right, good. The record
Probably better than we do.
The record is correct. So with those two resolved removed, any other further discussion on the resolution, or are we good to vote? And the one thing I would maybe ask the committee just to get a sense of, if this does pass with unanimous support, I would ask that this not be put on the consent agenda and just ask to be put on the regular committee agenda if there's no objection to that, if it does pass unanimously. All right, so we'll go ahead and call the roll. Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Veronica.
Yes.
Ann.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So this will move on to the legislature and we'll go from there. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, we are going to keep moving at a brisk pace. The next, Nick, thank you for your patience. We have 2025 Tourism Program Budget ID 12538. Nick Hemholt, the Tourism Director. Tourism Planner, right?
What's that?
Tourism Planner.
Yes.
Tourism Program Director, Principal Planner. But it's okay.
Wow. All right.
Nick will work fine.
Yeah, Nick is here.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll switching gears a little bit here. We've got a very full agenda today. Typically we do a little presentation every year after the Strategic Tourism Planning Board votes on its proposed budget. So included in your packet, starting on page 29, is that recommendation, that recommended budget. It's also already been uploaded into OpenGov, so it's going through that process in parallel. This is not sort of a separate thing. This is just all going together. It's not asking for any action today. It's just a review, opportunity to ask some questions, get a little deeper dive under the hood on this nuanced little part of the county budget. This budget is funded entirely by hotel room occupancy taxes on Tompkins County lodging establishments. That includes hotels, motels, inns, bed and breakfast, Airbnb, vacation rentals, basically anything with a roof that you can rent for one night or more. The budget for 2025 is $4,280,000, which is actually a slight decrease from what we forecasted in 2024. Some of the reasons for that are described in the memo. Part of that has to do with basically that we've realized the recovery in a lot of ways in terms of from where the bottom of the market was during COVID and the growth that's happened over the last few years. We're not forecasting that sort of like major growth that we've seen in the past few years. That's coming back a bit. Another piece of the puzzle is the short-term rental ordinance that the city of Ithaca has recently passed. We expect that will lead to a reduction in the overall supply of short-term rental operations in the city. And just as that, we don't expect that supply to be picked up in other towns within the county. Some of it may be, but certainly not the majority of it, and it probably won't charge the same rates as the city properties currently do. So in general, we're seeing a contraction in that side of the market coming up in 2025. On the plus side, 2025 should be the first full year where we have the conference center up and running. However, as we've been saying sort of since the beginning of this project, it's going to take some time for that to ramp up, for us to get the bookings and business that's really going to drive demand and traffic across the calendar in our tourism market. So a variety of factors at play in the coming year for tourism. Jumping ahead a little bit into the budget, in terms of reserves, we're not proposed to withdraw or deposit any funding into reserves. Coming into this budget process, we were at the target, actually slightly above the target level where we would like the fund balance to be. So there's no changes proposed there. There's some description in this memo of the multi-year contracts that we currently have in place that are for the for the conference center and for the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and how those play into the budget. Those are effectively fixed costs. And then the remainder of the memo describes the proposals that we received from outside agencies, county departments, relating to expenses that were proposed for the budget. And you can see, each one of them has a brief description in here. We have more information if you want to see more precisely what's proposed and how it was planned to be delivered. Because it is a tighter budget year, not everything was funded fully, and certainly there were some things that we went back and forth on between the draft budget and the final one that STPB proposed, where some changes were made, and those are noted here in the memo. Some ones that are noteworthy that I'd like to point out. There are some changes coming for the festivals program. We've sent out a message to all previous users of the festivals program and recent grant recipients that program is going to be basically suspended or paused in the coming months as we're trying to retool it to be more financially sustainable for the organization that hosts it. So we have put out a request that any requests for equipment rental be put into the Downtown Ithaca Alliance on or before July 19th. If you know of an organization that uses this program that may not have heard of that, please feel free to direct them to me. I'm happy to coordinate any of those types of requests in the coming weeks. Another piece that's new, that's exciting, is the Greater Ithaca Activity Center Hospitality Employment Training Program. This is the first time this line item is being included in the tourism program budget, and will, hopefully help that program stabilize its ability to deliver great service across the county. So those are a couple things that I think are noteworthy. There's a lot of other things that I think are worthy of pointing out or discussing in here. But as we are already past 4:30, I won't belabor that. I'm happy to answer any questions folks have about this document or the process.
Veronica and then Ann.
About the short-term rentals, reducing whatever the supply of tourism lodging places, what proportion of those were paying room tax in the first place?
Virtually all of them. Yeah, my understanding is that most of them are Airbnb, or had been using Airbnb, and through our voluntary collection agreement with Airbnb, we're collecting tax on that. So,
if a unit was rented on Airbnb in the city of Ithaca, it was paying occupancy tax.
To the county, yes.
To the county.
Yeah, not necessarily the city's occupancy tax, which is a separate issue, so.
Yes. That doesn't include the other rental platforms, though. The only voluntary collection agreement we had was with Airbnb.
That's correct. Our last report on short-term rentals, I believe, showed that roughly 80 or 90% of the market was Airbnb. So when I say virtually all of them, that's catching that segment.
Ann?
So two questions. First short one. So for the DIA lending program for equipment, so did you say we can connect people with you? And is that program still free?
It is still free. You can connect them with me, and I will be happy to play matchmaker with the folks at Downtown Ithaca Alliance who are continuing to place reservations for equipment through the end of this year. And we are anticipating the Downtown Ithaca Alliance will continue to operate that program as it has through the end of the year. Following that, we're going to be working with them on what this looks like going forward to find a way that is financially solvent for them.
So then after that, they might go as a rental for the equipment.
There's a variety of options being considered at this point. I don't have a definitive list at this stage. But
okay,
yeah.
Good to know. I know sometimes it's hard to find the folks to talk to for that program. So, and then if you can't do this in like 20 seconds, but just wondering for the change in the city of Ithaca Airbnb or the short-term rentals, can you give us a snapshot of what the biggest change is that's going to be lowering the amount of short-term rentals?
Yeah, the component of the law that's going to really limit the number of the supply, that is, of rentals is that the unit is required to be a primary residence of the person who's applying to hold that permit. So there are conditions and situations, and actually I'm personally familiar with a couple of them, where folks can satisfy that requirement and continue to operate. There are a lot more situations where they're not going to be able to satisfy that, certainly not in a way that is consistent with the spirit or intent of that law. And I think we'll see in the coming months, as enforcement, starts to sort of move forward on that ordinance, owners making decisions as to whether or not they're going to stay in the short-term rental market or go toward the long-term rental market or just sell their property. So.
And that doesn't go into effect until May of 25 officially?
Yeah, there's a bit of a time component to this as well. So that's part of the reason we're not seeing this change happening right now in our budget. In fact, still working on the second quarter room tax, which I expect we'll have a report for this committee next month. And yet right now we're seeing basically, normal activity in that side of the market.
So it has to be their primary residence, most likely someone living on site, being on site. It sounds like what they were going for.
Correct.
Okay,
yep.
Thank you.
Because it's safe to say that about 50% or so of short-term rentals in the county were based in the city of Ithaca?
Yes, yeah.
Great. So with that being said, and probably some of those being the higher rate contributors, the growth that we've seen to the tourism budget in the past, the significant growth has been in short-term rental occupancy tax collection. Some of that was the change several years ago from 3% to 5%. In the lodging establishments with 10 or fewer rooms. But a lot of that has to be, can be attributed to the popularity of people choosing to travel and experience our community in a different way. My prediction, personal prediction, is that this will have a significant impact on the occupancy tax collection. I think the projections are a little bullish. on the short-term rental side of the budget, but I'd love to be proven otherwise. So I think that when we show no growth, and full disclosure, I'm a member of the STPB Budget Committee, so these are not new comments. I think we'll see a real impact, and I think we'll be faced with some tough decisions as a community. I understand that the benefit of housing and things like that, but I hope that those of our partners in municipal government who have land use control will also move with as expeditious and swift action to increase the ability for people to create housing rather than further restrict the development or zoning or whatever the case may be. That was a side note. My only comment other than that about this is at some point I would love my legislative colleagues and hopefully Lisa's still here. I was hoping I could get this one passed without her hearing. Looking at that 10% of the part of the budget where about $295,000 goes to unallocated revenues, which sort of means just the general pot of money. Sorry, hi Lisa. I've tried to move this one past before. I would love to see the planning department's portion lumped into that 195 so that we could have an additional 100,000+ or more to support community, cultural, arts organizations in a meaningful way, but understand the financial and budget constraints. But that's my only wish with this budget, is it'd be slightly different than it is. But we'll take that one up in September or October. Nick, do you need any other feedback, or this is just an FYI for us, correct?
This is really an FYI and an opportunity for this committee to ask questions, get a little deeper into the mechanics of this component of the budget, and just see if there's anything that you have curiosity about, you want to satisfy. One of the things, I should have mentioned this earlier, is this is another new line item in here, is the funding for the airport. This is at the impetus of county leadership to include some component of funding for the airport in the 2025 budget. So the draft that was submitted into OpenGov has $100,000 blocked in for that purpose. So I've been coordinating with finance and the airport to make sure all the pieces connect on the back end on that. So.
Part of that rationale also being that the county over the last several years has had to come out of either reserve or levy dollars or whatever the case may be to fund debt service for the airport because of lower than anticipated post-pandemic air travel numbers and revenue for the airport. So this hopefully will alleviate some of the burden on the levy and use a different revenue source of dollars so that taxpayers, county taxpayers through property tax aren't having to absorb as much of that expense, and that it can be shared across sort of the tourism-based revenue is the logic in that move. So. If there's no other questions, Nick, appreciate as always the hard work that you put into this. It's a complex program, and it's a lot of different stakeholders involved, so appreciate threading the needle on this one.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, next up, Chris Spawn, Director of Workforce Development. We have as much time as you need within a short period of time, so apologize. I promise next time you're in the rotation, you'll be at the top of the batting order.
That's totally fine. I just want 45 minutes, if that's okay with you. So.
Sure. We may adjourn, but you're welcome to use the space for as much time as you need. I'm teasing. I'm going to move, Chris, first the resolution that we have, just so we can make sure we get that off the. I'm going to go ahead and ask for a mover and a second for the appropriation from contingent fund terminal pay, Office of Employment and Training, Clerk and Workforce Development, Coordinator Workforce Development. That's doc ID 12537. I saw Veronica Pillar move and Ann Koreman second. These types of resolutions are standard. If there's a change in employment, that's just sort of an accounting and bookkeeping function that goes through the program committees and then on to the legislature for approval. If there's a discussion that needs to be had, if somebody wants to make it known that they'd like to review this or talk about it in more detail, we can. If not, we'll happy to go ahead and take a vote. All right, we're going to call the vote then. Travis?
Yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So that passes unanimously. Next, we have Chris here with a brief July update from Workforce Development.
Yes, so I'll be out of this seat in 10 minutes unless you ask me a bunch of questions, so I'll keep it quick. So Tompkins County Workforce Development is the principal workforce development entity for Tompkins County's government. We are a leading workforce development service provider, administrating programs for adults, dislocated workers, the unemployed, youth, and those with different abilities. We are the link between job seekers looking to begin or change careers and businesses looking for skilled workers. We equip you with the tools needed to succeed, from supportive services to training to career preparation to finding a job. Our full service Tompkins Workforce New York Career Center is located with the Department of Labor in Center Ithaca on the Commons. We believe everyone is entitled to an opportunity, no matter where they come from, so please feel free to come visit us at the Career Center or refer a friend or somebody you know so we can help them out and get them on the right path. So for our agenda, I'm going to talk about Direct to Work, the manufacturing program in the area, so our summer youth employment program. I'm going to give some communications updates and then some staffing updates. So, oops. So our summer, actually, the Direct to Work slide disappeared, but that's okay, I can speak on it still. So Direct to Work Pathways to Manufacturing is a 5-week career readiness program that prepares people for entry-level work in manufacturing. This was built in partnership with local manufacturers such as Borg-Warner, Therm. So basically, this is a program meant to meet the needs of those seeking jobs and then also those from the private sector. So basically, the idea is this is a 5-week program. Upon graduation, you receive a $1,000 stipend, and then you'll be able to interview with your top employer of choice. If you put in the work for this program, then you will end up getting a job. So we've seen this over the past year. People commit to the program, and then they interview, and then they get hired. So during this process, you're receiving hands-on training with the IAED staff, people from trades unions, and different things like that. So it's really a well-rounded experience for somebody to really get going. It's really open to anybody, so it's like all are welcome. We're not really discriminating. Like you have to be this certain kind of experience, or you have to have this kind of educational experience. So really I encourage everyone to attend an info session, sign up, and then find out more about it. So you ask, how do I get involved? Is this real? So yeah, this program really is real. I remember last year there was a gentleman who was an Uber driver, whatever else there is, Lyft, just doing everything, trying to make ends meet. A very hard worker, but he just did not have the access to opportunity. Like in previous discussions earlier today, you know, there's people like busting their butts off, but none of it matters when everything else is really expensive. But I did run into him the other day. He was actually at Dick's buying nicer shoes than I was. He was getting a nice pair of Jordans and everything. So this program really does work, and it does make a difference. I know that he can take care of himself, and then when he has a family in the future, he can definitely take care of them too. So this is a very huge program in our area that we need to all support, and I know that the Ledge and this committee has supported it. So how do I get involved? So go to Google and type in IAED Direct to Work. So IAED Direct to Work. After you search Google, it'll be the top link, and it'll lead you to the web page. Then there's going to be an orange box on the right that says click here to sign up for an information session. So this is just a step in the process for you. The final info session is Friday, July 12th at 10 a.m. at IAED, which is on 119 East Seneca Street on the 2nd floor. And if that date doesn't fit your schedule, then just please reach out to the contacts on that website. There's Mary Helen Davis and Danny Zavo's contact should be on there too, and they can arrange something where they can provide you that information so you can make a more informed decision. So the summer cohort will be from July 29th to August 30th. It's Monday through Friday from 9:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. and the program runs out of the TC3 Extension Center at 118 North Tioga Street. So very excited for the summer cohort coming up. We definitely encourage everyone to apply and spread the word. During this process, Workforce Development and IAED have been collaborating to streamline the recruitment process and intake process. So for the spring cohort, we funded 7 participants and covered their tuition for this program. So By working with IAED, we're able to collaborate on getting the appropriate documentation, photo identification, learning about what challenges they faced. It could be barriers such as language, justice involvement, disability, like what is their transportation situation. We have a lot of those conversations in general, but having a heads up and everything and working with them as one during the intake process can speed up the process. So Cindy from our adult team, she intakes everybody in a week, and we were able to approve everybody for funding right away. So we're very excited about that. So now on to Summer Youth Employment Program. So Summer Youth Employment Program is Workforce Development's signature summer program. It gives area youth work experience they otherwise would not find. This gives youth mentorship and guidance and then opens up their minds to different career pathways. I used to be a teacher on the south side of Chicago, and I remember trying to help my students find work, and it's brutal out there for a young one. They're competing against people in their 20s who have college degrees, even grown-ups who are like in their 40s and 50s have way more experience. So there's really no shortage in ambition from our youth. They just need that first chance to get going, and especially the kids that we're serving in this program, it's like paramount to their success and like where they're gonna go and building their confidence. So very excited for this program. This photo on the right, this is from the Ithaca Children's Garden, so I had a great time. So I was able to talk with the youth, learn more about what's going on in their life, how they enjoyed the summer, what they've learned. So we're really excited about. I was really excited hearing from them. They're just very mature. They're kind of aware. They're like, well, Chris, I know what I want to do now, and then I know what I don't want to do. But I met these great people, and now I kind of have that confidence to do what I want to do. So throughout the summer, they're partnered with workforce development youth staff to help check in on them throughout the summer, be their person to help them. Then they have their person at the work site who's helping them. And then we also partner with Ithaca Youth Bureau too, so we also fund part of the YES program. So obviously we all know how great they are, so they get that same support, which is very great.
There's a quick question on that. Is it too late for youth to sign up for summer youth employment?
Yes, it is too late, yes. But we'll have it next summer.
Great.
So we're very excited, and I'll definitely give everyone a heads up about that. We're also looking to expand more into the rural areas. So many times we say, I work for Tompkins County Workforce Development, Tompkins County, but a lot of times it's all about Ithaca, which is very important because Ithaca has a lot of needs that need to be addressed, but we're also looking to expand into the rural areas for like these work sites for the youth. So this summer we're going to be in Groton, the Groton Library, Ulysses Library, Newfield Gardens, Freeville, and then I'm drawing a blank on the other place. We're out in Dryden too. So we are looking to expand our reach. It is hard to do these things when it's never been done before. So we are very excited by like next summer, we'll be able to build off more and get more sites in the rural areas. Communications update. So last time we talked, we did not have a communications specialist. This was actually part of an OTR last year, so thank you for, I believe everyone here supported this position, so we really appreciate it. We were able to post it, do the hiring process, and get someone going. So we launched our first newsletter in May, which was very exciting. We had 6,370 recipients with 2,676 unique opens, which was a 42% open rate, and according to Dominic, our communications director, that's really good. So we're using this as a platform to spread news about what's going on in the area for programs, what funding is out there for people. So as you can see in this first newsletter, we highlighted direct to work, the spring graduation, what job fairs are going on. I have an explanation of what our department is at the top with a link to sign up. So we're just trying to spread the word of like what we actually do. So Scout has been great, our communication specialist. They've updated our calendars on our website, updated info and links, made it more manageable for people, both looking at it on your phone and on the computer, because a lot of times people don't have computers anymore. They're like on iPads and iPhones. So they have been really conscious about that. And then there's going to be a new website coming up, as you all know in the fall. So we've been talking with Dominic a lot. We've had several meetings. He just came to our office last week. We're really excited about the website because we're going to be highlighted as one of the main departments, and we offer a lot of services that are important. Something that we're strategizing around is creating a Tompkins County jobs board. So the whole point is to make this process easier for somebody. So finding a job is absolutely miserable and hard and can be very challenging, and some people may not even have the skills. Or you have the skills and like what's out there is not very helpful. So I've been employed myself in the past, and obviously I know people who are unemployed right now in my role. So we really just want to make this process easier, very user-friendly. Just because Indeed has jobs set up a certain way doesn't mean we need to follow that. We're trying to be creative and thinking of how these jobs are organized. There's paid training, so like Direct to Work I just talked to. Aloja has a career pathways program for green jobs. There's also part-time work. You may need a college degree. Maybe some people don't want to work in the private sector. They want to work as a service provider, working for a nonprofit, just like better organizing those opportunities for people. Several times I have like people from the private sector, our community-based organizations, they have like really good leads, recommendations. It's like, hey, Chris, do you know somebody? And it's like, how do I share that post, that urgency with everybody? Because you couldn't find that on Indeed. And we're also trying to be the liaison for people. If they want more information, they want someone to talk to, like how do I navigate through that? We're like someone to talk to. That's what we're supposed to be doing. But we're just trying to be creative in different ways we can create these opportunities where we can interact and make a difference in people's lives. Along with that, we're hoping to have links to cover letters, networking. You know, this is some of the other stuff you have to do, because just going to a jobs board is not enough. Like there's networking and all these other things out there, and we can help train you up for that or make you aware of that, you know, that's another way to find jobs. And then also bringing back social media. So Scouts brought back our social media presence, so we've been promoting our partners, and then just being very creative about that. That was kind of dormant in the process when we didn't have a specialist. Finally, staffing updates. So actually Thursday will be the end of my second year with the county, and then our department restructured in October. So I'm very excited where we are today, because we continue to build every day, and I'm just very thankful for like the people that I have around me, the ledge, everyone here that's been supportive of our department, Bridget, Lisa. It's really been great. And along the way, we've been very blessed to have a lot of good candidates to apply for our jobs. I did a lot of revisions to our qualifications, the way some things were worded. I really kept it open to, you know, to make sure we were able to make that door open for everybody, because, you know, a lot of times the way something's written doesn't mean it needs to stay that way. Just because it said that for like 20 years, I mean, okay, like let's rewrite that, because we're in 2024. So we did a lot of that where we were able to open up some of these listings to people. But like I said, Scout, our communication specialist, complete rock star so far. It's already been 3 months. The deputy director of the board, Diane, so she's been our fiscal coordinator. She's been with this department for like 5 years, always been there. Ever since I've been here, has always been so supportive, like picking up the slack, helping push me to make sure we're fulfilling all our obligations. So she's really been behind the scenes, helping our department stay alive. So we're excited that she can be our deputy director of the board. And then deputy director of the Career Center, Ty Basilius, she actually spoke at a committee meeting a few months back. She's on the youth team. And we're excited for her innovative ideas and ambition and really pushing us to another level. And then workforce development specialist, so that's someone on the adult team. Julia, she was actually a project assistant, put in a lot of hard work, was very dedicated to us on limited hours, but still did a million things as if she was a 40-hour employee. So we were very excited to be able to promote her in that role. So just really grateful for everybody that we have. To use a sports analogy, like we have a championship level team at this point. So we have a few more pieces we need to fill we have one vacancy that we need to fill, but we're very excited, and I'm looking forward to give more updates in the future. But that is all I have for now, and hopefully that was under 10 minutes. We'll see.
You were exactly at 10 minutes, so well done.
Yeah.
I apologize to everybody for the agenda and the time overage, and appreciate my colleagues and staff for sticking around for a few extra minutes. Any questions for Chris? Chris, as always, huge fan of the work that you all do. It's really exciting to see the life and energy and the passion in which I know you bring every day, but also your team to this important work. I think it's so critical that we continue to spread the message about what you and your team are doing and the resources that we have to both workers and employers as they sort of seek to navigate as you said, you know, that sort of difficult to navigate at times terrain of employment and seeking new employment or different employment. So thank you for that. This is great. Again, I think the direct to work programs and the things and the collaboration, working together, being the convener of industry and not-for-profits and community partners is so key. And I think it's great that we have an emphasis on getting our youth to work so that they can see that there's many options ahead of them in life. And to your point, there are things that they will learn they absolutely love, and then there's things that they absolutely do not love. And these are all great experiences as we develop young people as they move forward in life. So thank you. I don't personally have any questions, but I really appreciate the work that you're doing, the breadth of life and energy that you're bringing to the department. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you everybody for staying a little longer so I could talk. Appreciate it, and see everyone next time. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Thank you, and I second everything that Greg said. Thank you.
Yes, also thank you. Sounds like you and your department are thriving, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so
And I liked the newsletter. I was one of those 2,000 whatever opens.
Good, yeah.
Happy to read a very cool profile of a successful person coming up through the workplace and all the other things.
We have a good one this month, so, and please share with your network. Thank you.
It is 5:17. If there's no objection, I'd like to call us adjourned for the day.
That's good.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks so much for sticking around.
Thank you, Greg.